Okay. So as I mentioned, I don't want to leave 5785 without discussing this topic, which I just discovered a couple of weeks ago when I got the Hamayan Journal. Um, Many of you may know that 100 years ago, in 1925, in 5685, um, there were a number of things that were happening in the Jewish world. I actually write a little bit about that in the publisher's preface to the Chachmei Lev Journal, which will be coming out in the next couple of weeks before Rosh Hashanah. A number of you have written articles, Laser, Peter, anyone else here? Simi has an article, and Chaim, fantastic, and some really, really good stuff. Um, and so I give a partial list of things that are of note that happened 100 years ago. And one of the things that occurred was the opening of Hebrew University, the very first university in the modern state of Israel, which you might think would be something that, just like today, there aren't too many rabbis who associate their name to Hebrew University. You might think that the same would have been true when the university opened, but that was not the case. What actually was the case is that Rav Avram Yitzchak HaKohen Kook, the chief rabbi of Israel, was present at the dedication of Hebrew University and gave an address. It doesn't seem that there was a lot of controversy when he first gave the address, but 8 years later, the controversy arose as a result of the fact that 8 years after Hebrew University started, I guess it would be 1933, what happened is that Hebrew University began a course on Bible criticism, studying the Bible as literature. And that's when Rav Kook, whose address had been published by that time as welcoming this new development of her new university in the state of Israel, became somewhat controversial. So in the journal Hamayan, which is published, I think, twice a year from Israel, from actually Yeshivat Shalavim now, published an article about the criticism that Rav Kook had faced 8 years after Hebrew University opened. But I think it's important. This is not a halachic issue. This is a hashkafic issue that we're going to be looking at tonight. What was Rav Kook thinking when he gave his blessings at the opening of Hebrew University? And was he aware, or did he envision what Hebrew University would become? And had he known, would he have given the same approbation that he gave when it opened? So that's what I wanted to take a look at with you. It's a short address. It's published in Ma'amarei Hari'iyah, which is a sefer that is a collection of many of Rav Kook's letters and essays. And so let's take a look at it together. So this is from 1925, exactly, or almost a little bit over 100 years ago from today. It was Nisan of Tuf Reish Pei. Okay, Baruch Atah Adonai. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to just share my screen. Here we go. So he starts off by saying, Navi HaNechama Amar, the prophet of consolation. Who's he referring to? Yeshayahu. He said as follows. This is from Yeshaya Perek Samech. Se'i saviv einayich uri'i. Lift your eyes all around you and see. Kulam nikbitzu ba'ulach. Everyone is gathered and is coming towards you, O city of Jerusalem. Banayich merachok yavo'u. Your sons will come from a distance. Uvenotayich al tzad te'amana. And your daughters will be faithfully at your side. Az tir'i v'nahart. Then you will see and be enlightened. Upachad v'rachav levavech. Your heart will be frightened and will be expanded. That's something that Rav Kook is going to say. There's something discordant in that word ufachad. Everything else is wonderful, but why would you be fearful? Okay, ki yehafech alech alayich hamon yam, because there will be a huge tidal wave that comes upon you. Chel goyim yavo ulach, a great and mighty a throng of nations will come towards you. So that's what the pasuk says, and it seems to be a prophecy about the messianic future, about how the world will come to Jerusalem in a very positive way. So Rav Kook says, "Ha'orah hagadol shel hayom hazeh." I want you to imagine, it's 100 years ago, before the founding of the state, 1925. We're all seated in an auditorium or on the outside on Mount Scopus, on Har Tzofim. And we're all seated listening to the chief rabbi get up to speak. And he says, this great event, Petichat HaMichlala HaIvrit B'Yerushalayim Bahar HaTzofim, the opening of the Hebrew University of Jerusalem on Mount Scopus, B'tekes Kol Kach Nedar, in such a beautiful ceremony, B'chagiga Kol Kach Melaya Nahora, in a celebration that is so filled with light, B'kibutz alafim urevavot shel banenu uvnotenu mikol afsei Eretz Yisrael ume'artzot hagolah. Gathered together are thousands, if not tens of thousands, of our sons and daughters coming from all walks of Israeli life and even from Chutz La'aretz. Matzig lefanenu et chazon hakodesh shel nevuah zu kemochai b'tzura shel ze'er anpin. And he says, this pasuk is coming alive for us as we are seated here in this gathering. Like ze'er anpin, it's coming to reveal itself. It's a Kabbalistic term. It means that God, in some microcosmic way, is fulfilling this verse. Im adayin lo kulam nikbetzu. And so what he means to say is that, okay, fine, maybe not all Jews have gathered here yet. In other words, kibbutz golius has not taken place yet. But mize'erahi hatchalat kibbutz galuyotenu. But there's a microcosm of this happening. It's just starting. And the ingathering is just starting now. Aval aruva gedolahi tuchunat kibbutz zeh shahamoed ba. But we can view this as our guarantee that the gathering is starting to happen. It's starting to bubble. V'sha'arei gu'ula holchim v'niftachim lefanenu. And the gates of redemption are opening wider and wider in front of us. So Rav Kook clearly is viewing the establishment of Hebrew University as part of the redemption process. Okay? Ad shetikvatenu mitchazeket shelo ye'acher lavo gam hayom hagadol. By being witness to what's happening here, we can rest assured, this is sort of the guarantee that great things are going to come to our future. Shekulam yikaptzu v'yavo eleinu, that even more Jews, the entire nation, will eventually gather on this land. U'geulim yalu l'tzion berina, and the redeemed will come to Zion in joy. Next paragraph. Makir manu gam bereshit mitzadenu hayom et ma she'omer hanavi az tir'i. We can clearly see, as we first embark on this gathering today, what the prophet means when he says, then you will see. You will see with your own eyes. And this is what he says we are witness to today. Ayin ba'ayin anoroim miflaot tamim deim goel Yisrael. We can see with our own eyes the amazing wonders that the Redeemer of Israel is doing for us. Asher asa imanu et kol hagidula hazot, that has done all of this wondrous thing before us. Laharim keren amo ben kol amei haaretz, to raise up our nation, our people, among all of the other nations of the world. Now remember, this is before the founding of the state. This is over 2 decades before 1948, okay? Latet lanu nir biyehuda, to give us a beautiful piece of land in Judea. V'latet lanu oz u'she'er ruach lahachel lechonen et chayei amenu, and to give us the strength to at least begin planting the seeds of our nation, the life of our nation. Kimei olam al admat hakodesh, just like days of old when we were living on this holy land. Makirim anu gamkein et habitui shel vinahart. We can also appreciate what the Navi says, Az tiri vinahart, you will see and you will be illuminated or enlightened. Hadarat hapanim hamakrinim merov gil v'chedva shel alfei hane'esafim. When I look out at the crowd today, I see people's faces lit up by the great joy of what is happening from the thousands of people that are here today. Miteshuot chen v'chavod yif'ah v'godel shel orchenu hagedolim, because we see such great honor that is being accorded to this gathering by having such important dignitaries that are here with us today. So what is he now saying? Let's see who was present besides Rav Kook at this gathering at Hebrew University. Nochachotam shel tzir miromim levisurata hatzara. We have here present an axis of great and lofty chashuvim, important people who are here to lend their support to this grand opening. Lord Balfour is here. The Balfour Declaration, the person who was responsible for that some 8 years prior. Shalhod ma'alato nitzivenu ha'elyon achinu Sir Herbert Samuel. He says, the first High Commissioner of Palestine, Sir Herbert Samuel, is here today. That's why they call it the Herbert Samuel Hotel. Now you know why. He was the first High Commissioner of Palestine. You know, Britain had conquered Palestine from the Ottomans just 8 years before. So we have to give kavod to Sir Balfour. We have to give kavod, Lord Balfour. We have to give kavod to Sir Herbert Samuel, who's the High Commissioner. Shalhod Malato HaLord Allenby. We have to give kavod to Lord Allenby, who was also here today. And he too was one of the generals that was responsible for conquering and taking control of Palestine from the Turks. V'shel gedolei harabonim v'hachachamim. And there are other great rabbis and wise men who are here today. So he's not the only rabbi, Rav Kook, at this gathering. Hama'aturim beziv kivodam et hachagiga hamefo'ara hazod. All of these dignitaries are giving great honor and glory to this gathering. He menaheret et nafshot shel kol hanikbat simhena, and you give light and illumination to everyone who's gathered here. Vet alfei revava me'achenu merachok shenishmatam makshevet et hagodol shel kavod ha'uma shel hayom hazeh. And the tens of thousands of our brethren who are, I guess, hearing about this from a distance. Maybe the reporters, the journalists were there, and they were reporting to all of the Jews throughout the world who were reading about this. Aval. So now with that's all of the pomp and the circumstance and the niceties of the introduction. Now Rav Kook gets into the meat of his address. And he starts off with the question, Aval hapachad lama hu ba. Why in this pasuk in Isaiah chapter 60, when Isaiah is talking about the glorious day when all nations and the Jewish people will gather in Jerusalem, gather in Zion, why does he say, Upachad v'rachav levavech? Your heart will be fearful and will be widened. How are those two reconcilable? What does it mean to have a fearful heart? That means your heart is narrow. And what does it mean, v'rachav levavech, after your fear? What's going on here, says Rav Kook. Lama hikdim hanavi et hapachad lifnei ha'omra shel v'rachav levavech. Why does fear have to precede having a widened heart, which means a sense of contentment and feeling a sense of having arrived? Ach ka'asher nisa da'atenu l'merchok, lishnot dorot asher avru, u'mif'alei tenuot ruchniot shepalu al amenu. Let's look back at history, says Rav Kook. Let's look at all that's happened to our people over the course of the centuries. Hinenu muchanim miyad lahakir, ki mat'im kan gam hachazon shel hapachad hamitzuraf el rechavat levavenu. We'll easily be able to understand why there needs to be a conjoining of fear and this rochav lev, this sense of contentment. The two have to be in tandem. Why? Shnei mahalchim yeshnam l'ruach Yisrael, because there are two approaches for the spirit of Israel. Mahalach echad penimi kulo kadosh. Listen to Rav Kook's language. He says one mahalach, one pathway that the Jewish nation can take, or segments of the Jewish nation, is what he calls the mahalach penimi, the inner path or the inward path, which is completely holy. Kulo mishamesh lahamakat rucho. Those who choose this path are constantly focused on deepening the spiritual soul of the Jewish nation. Ulaor Torato bikirbo penima, and they're always focused on the light of Torah inwardly. Lazeh shimshu kol mechonot haTorah asher me'olam. This is the approach of all Torah institutions from time immemorial. Next page. Mivtzarei haneshama asher liYisrael hayeshivos shahayu v'shehinan. This is all of the spiritual structures and organizations of Klal Yisrael, the yeshivas that did exist and that continue to exist. V'sha'atidot liot b'tochenu, and that will continue to exist in the future. Lahagdil Torah ulaha'adira, to raise up the banner of Torah and to adorn it. V'melo muvne godla ve'oshra shel hashifa ha'kedosha hazot b'Yisrael midor dor. And this only continues to amplify and become more enriched for the kedusha of Israel from generation to generation. Mahale charua hazeh kulo batuach. He says this path is secure. This path you have nothing to fear. If you're going to focus on building up the yeshivas, then you can rest assured that you are on the right path. Shalom rav le'ohavei toratecha ve'ein lamo michshol, as King David says, there will be great peace and security and contentment for those who pursue your Torah, and they will not stumble. V'omnam im kol habitachon shelo, hitpalel Rabbi Nechunya ben Hakona b'chnisaso lebeit hamidrash shelo ye'ora devar takola al yado. Despite that sense of security that you have when you go into the Torah business, when you support yeshivas, and that's what your focus is, Rabbi Nechunya ben Hakona still prayed that before he would enter into the Beis Medrash, he said, please Hashem, save me from any kind of failure, from any kind of error that I might make in my Torah study. Even in the most secure of places in the Beis Medrash, you still have to be a little bit concerned that you might say something wrong or may judge something erroneously. But in general, it's a very, very secure endeavor. Rav Kook continues. That's the first mahalach. It's the inward mahalach, it's the Torah mahalach, it's the Kulo Kadosh mahalach. The second mahalach for Klal Yisrael, for those who choose it, Shel haruach ba'uma mishamesh la lo rak laha'amakat ha'kodesh asher laTorah b'tocha penima, ki im gam shavil lahotza'a v'hachnasa. The second path retains the emphasis on Torah to retain the inward holiness, but it also focuses on bringing out and bringing in, taking out and bringing in. What he's referring to is the interaction with the outside world. Okay? Lahotzi musagim va'arachim shel ha'yahadut mitoch rishus ha'yachid shelanu el rishut harabim shel ha'olam ha'klali. So he says, what does this mean? What do I mean? What's the bringing, taking out and bringing in? He's referring to the idea that we as Klal Yisrael have a responsibility to share Torah ideas with the rest of the world and to become acculturated by external societal cultural practices. Shaharei bishvil kach hinenu omdim lo'or amim. That's why God placed us in front of all of the other nations. Ulahachnis gam madaim klaliyim mitoch ha'enoshiyut harechava, and to bring into our people some of the disciplines of knowledge that were developed externally among the other nations of the world. Rav Kook says the Ribono Shel Olam wanted the Rambam to use Greek methodology in understanding Torah. That was the mahalach of the Rambam, to be machnis umotzi, to both bring in external ideas to help enhance our Torah, and to take Torah ideas and share them with the rest of the world. That's very different from the first Mahalach. First Mahalach is to be inwardly focused and not to be concerned about anything else that's going on outside. The second Mahalach is to look at the outside world as the source of bringing in certain positive things and to share with the outside world certain Torah ideas. ולהתאים את הטוב והמעולה שלהם לאוצר חיינו בטהרתם, and to bring in the best of what the outside world has to offer to us in its purified state. שסוף כל סוף גם הכנסה זה משמשת להוצאה מוסברת ומופעת מתוך עולמנו אל העולם הכללי. Because when we bring in certain ideas and methodologies into the Torah world, we can then share Torah ideas using that filter and share it with the rest of the world. L'shem kach tuchal hamichlala l'shamesh kli machshir gadol v'niskav. And therefore, he says, this is the punchline. That's what Hebrew University is for. It is to be able to act as a vehicle for this mahalach, to be able to share Judaism with the rest of the world using the methodologies of the outside world. So we use the academic method, we take the university method, we take all of the scholarship of the outside world, bring it into the Jewish world, and then share Jewish academia with the rest of the world. So far, you're understanding where he's going with this, okay? So far, so good. V'kanhu ohavai makom hapachad. And that's why there's a reason to be frightened. That's why the Navi says that you have to be first afraid and then have that rechav levav, the broadness of heart. Nisyonot hayulanu biyamim mikedem. We've had a lot of nisyonos, a lot of trials in the earlier days. Shenesta pu'ulat hotza'a mirishutenu lirishut harabim biyachas lemusagim hachine eratzim ukedoshim shalanu. In previous generations, let's say in the 19th century, there were many ideas that were shared with the outside world from the Torah world. He says, Zehu ha'ma'orah shel ha'atakat Torah liyavanit. He says, just think, even in the times of the Talmud, the Torah was forced to be translated into the Greek language. What is he referring to? The Septuagint that was commissioned by King Talmai, and when the Torah was translated into Greek. And for some of the Chachamim, it was a day of mourning, and for others, it was a day of rejoicing, as he's going to explain. Sha'az nitkalu biyahadut shnei mahalchim klape hamifal hazeh. There were two approaches, two responses to this endeavor. Hayahadut ha'artzi Yisraelit pachadu az. Is Israelite Jewry, the Jews in Eretz Yisrael, whose language was Hebrew, were frightened from this. Va'olama chashach ba'ada, and the world became dark because of that for them. And the footnote quotes from Masechet Sofrim that, and by the way, we know that one of the things that happened on Shivasar B'Tammuz was that one of the reasons we fast is because the Torah was translated into Greek. So the rabbis acknowledge that this is a very a scary thing. It's a reason to be upset because there's a threat now to Yahadus. And just to quote from Masechet Sofrim, Ma'aseh behei zekenim shekasvu l'talmei hamelech et haTorah Yevanit. This version has 5 sages that translated the Torah for King Ptolemy into Greek. V'haya oto hayom kashe Yisrael kiyom shenase bo ha'egel. That day was as arduous and as painful for the Jewish people as the day when we built the golden calf. But on the other hand, he says, V'hayahadut ha'yevanit rachab levav amizeh. But the Greek Jewish world, meaning those Jews who were part of the Greek culture, had reason to rejoice from being in order so that it gave them a bridge to come back to their roots by having the Torah translated into Greek. The Kibbalata avodah b'simcha rabbah. So the Jews that were Hellenized joyfully accepted the Torah's translation into Greek. Haitalanu gamkein uvda shel hachnasa. So yes, on the one hand, we've shared the Torah and translated it into Greek, and that was a reason to be concerned. And we've also acculturated things from the outside world. Zarmei hatarbuyot hashonot, all of the different cultural streams, Chochma Yavanit v'yeter hatarbuyot shel amei hatevel, the Greek method and other cultural contributions, asher nifgashnu imam b'meshech zmanei toldotenu hashonim, that we've invariably encountered over the millennia of our existence. Chadru el kirbenu penima, these things have penetrated into our national consciousness. וגם המהלך הזה של ההכנסה נפגש מחוגים רבים בפחד. And many people, many parties were very frightened because of this encounter with the outside world and its cultures. ומחוגים אחרים ברוחב לב. And whereas other types of Jews, other groups of Jews, were very happy to be acculturated. So kishanu ba'im lidei cheshbon ata. So let's think about where we are today at the inaugural of Hebrew University. Acharei hatukufot asher avru, after all of the eras that we have lived through. Ro'im anu shelo lechinam haya hapachad. We can certainly understand the source of fear. Afal pi shelo lechinam haya gam rochav alev, even though there's reason to rejoice and to be content and to feel a sense of being blessed by having such an institution that is a fusion of the outside world and the Torah world. Hirvachnu mehazramim halalu b'muvanim yeduim, aval gam lo ma'at hifsadnu al yadam. We have gained, we have profited very much from having these types of cultural interactions, but we have also paid a heavy price. And we have also lost a lot because of those interactions and syntheses. V'zehu hadavar barur lanu, shemikol eila hachugim asher kiblu et shnei hazramim halalu shel ha'achnasa ve'hotza'ah. He says, one thing is clear, Rabbi Isai, he says, anyone who accepted these cultural exchanges with the outside world without below shum pachad, ki im bechedva opetimit banalit v'rochav lev levado, they just accepted it without any fear and just had pure optimism, a banal optimism, he says, optomit banalit, and just with a sense of contentment. Now the world is great. Now the Jewish people have been enriched and reached the point of fullness, because now we've received so many streams of cultural enhancement to Judaism without any concern, without any caution, right? He says, "Lo rabim hem b'kirbenu mibnei b'neihem shem shutafim ka'it imanu ba'avodotenu hakeveda v'hakadosha shel binyan artzenu v'shel tichiyat amenu." Guess what? The children of those people are not with us today. They are not participants in this holy endeavor of building Eretz Yisrael. And I think he's referring to the Haskalah. I think he's referring to the Reform. He's referring to those movements that came before us that fully embraced social acculturation to the European way. Those people have disappeared. Already by the 1920s, Rav Kook says, they didn't make Aliyah. They didn't come to build Eretz Yisrael. Those people are no longer here. Ki hachelek hayoter gadol me'ele halach v'nitma bein ha'amim. The vast majority of those people who didn't have the proper cautiousness when embracing the outside world are completely lost. They've been completely assimilated. V'nishtaf b'shetef hagalim shel zarmei, or hamon hayam shel chel goyim asher ba'u eleinu. They've been washed away by the waves and waves of non-Jewish acculturation that our nation has been faced with, that are coming to our land, right? But if you're not cautious, if you throw caution to the wind and you don't protect yourself from these streams of acculturation, you're going to be washed away by them. Rak me'ela asher yashvu lavetach b'mivtzarim hapinimiyim shalanu be'ohalei ha'toira b'kedushtat ha'mitzvah v'ha'chukah. He says it's only those people who have fortified themselves in the tents of Torah, in the holiness of doing mitzvos, v'gam me'ela asher amnam kiblu v'gam natnu, הוציאו וגם הכניסו ערכים ומושגים על ידי השביל הרוחני הממצע בין ישראל לעמים. He says, while at the same time sharing and both taking out and bringing in the best of Torah to the outside world and the best of the outside world into the Torah world. But they started with a foundation of Torah and Yiddishkeit. If those who completely threw caution to the wind and abandoned Yiddishkeit, they're not here anymore. אבל היחס שלהם למהלך הזה לא היה רק בצורה של רוחב לב, כי אם גם הפחד נלווה אצלם אל רוחב הלב וחדוות הרוח אשר באו מעוצם החזון הגדול של המון ים אשר לחיל גויים. The reason why these people have survived and are thriving is because they have the requisite pachad that they need to have, because they realize how dangerous those waves, those non-Jewish waves of ideology are, and how they pose a threat potentially to the Jewish continuity. Me'elu yatsu kol ela kochot hayitzira hane'emanim hapoalim b'vinyanenu hagadol b'chol lev hanefesh. It is from these people who have retained both the pachad and the rochav lev that we have all of these institutional strengths that are contained in our structure that we are standing in front of today. V'chol hagush hakadol shel ha'uma hane'eman lediglo. And it is the source of strength of our entire nation that stands before us today. Final page. V'alkein omar hanavi b'tzedek. And therefore, the prophet rightfully stated, Oz tir even ahart ufachad v'rachab levavech. Therefore, you will see, you will be illuminated, you are enlightened, and there will be fear and then contentment in your heart. Ki yehafech alayach hamon yam chel goyim yavou lach. Because there will be a wave of the Gentile world that will wash over you. But because you have the proper pachad and you have the proper rochav lev, you will allow this acculturation to occur while still standing strong in your fortresses of Torah. So you'll have that balance, okay? That's really what Rav Kook is saying. Hebrew University is a great thing, but only if it retains its Torah identity, its Jewish identity. אבל איך משקיטים את הפחד? איך מבטיחים את עומדת האומה נגד השטף הגדול הזה? How do we silence the fear? How do we put our fears to rest? How can we guarantee that we will continue to stand strong amidst the stream of acculturation? על זה הנני רבויסאי בתור שליח ציבור עומד על הבמה הכבודה הזאת, מוסר לכם את הגות ליבה של היהדות הנאמנה, b'chalakim rabim u'metzianim mimena. And therefore, I stand at this dais today, Rabbi Isai, as a representative of the Torah world, to give you my heartfelt thoughts about reliable or faithful Judaism, using the following sort of ingredients. Im neida shehamichlala levada lo tisakem et kol hadarush lechayenu ha'amamiyim. If we realize that Hebrew University is not the sole solution or the sole ingredient that is necessary in order to keep our nation alive, ki im tihiena lanu berosh v'rishon yeshivot shel Torah gedolot ve'etanot, but instead we recognize that the key to our survival is having yeshivas that are strong and large, Eila sheyishnan ve'eila sheholchot lihivatzer, those that already exist and those that are in the process of being built, uvahen otah yeshiva hamerkazit shehinenu mitamtzim, including the yeshiva that we are in the process of strengthening. What is he referring to? Merkaz Harav. When was Merkaz Harav founded? 1924, a year before the founding of Hebrew University. So Rav Kook is saying, we're in the process of building this yeshiva in Yerushalayim. The reason it was called Merkaz Harav, because Rav Kook's vision was that just like Hebrew University was going to be a national university for the Jewish people, Yeshivat Merkaz Harav Kook was going to be the central yeshiva for all of Klal Yisrael in Eretz Yisrael. That's what his vision was. When his son, Rav Tzvi Yehuda, took over the yeshiva, the sort of mission statement of the yeshiva changed slightly, and it turned into being the yeshiva for the Dati Leumi Hashkafa. But Rav Kook's original intent was that it should be the overarching yeshiva for the entire Jewish world. That was the objective. Be'ezrat Hashem yitbarach l'chonana b'Yerushalayim, that we hope to further establish in Jerusalem. Liot la'or me'ir ba'ora shel Torah b'Yisrael l'chol miktsa'otea, to be an enlightenment of Torah to all walks of Jewish life. B'halacha v'agada b'chochmat hama'asim b'chochmat hadeot, both in halacha and agada, both in the wisdom of action and in the wisdom of knowledge. Yeshivot kishman hamechonenot kime'az et ruach ha'uma b'chol melo bitchona. Yeshivas which will, in every sense of the word, fulfill the spiritual needs of this nation. V'im zeh tihya michlala umedet al gova kazeh sheyitkadesh shim shamayim v'shem Yisrael ve'eretz Yisrael al yada. If we appreciate that the yeshivot are just as vital to the existence of our national entity as the university, then Hebrew University will continue to subsist and be a source of great sanctification of the name of heaven and the name of Israel thereby. V'lo yitchalel b'shum ofen begina. There will be no chilul Hashem as a result of Hebrew University. Okay? Bein mitzad hamenahalim, bein mitzad hamorim, bein mitzad hatalmidim. In other words, as long as the faculty and the teachers and all of the students have this appreciation that Hebrew University is a supplement to the yeshiva world, then everything will be fine. Okay? Uviyichud shiyu hamorim asher lelimudei hayahadut hachel misefer hasfarim hatanach or chayenu. Especially, it's important that anyone who's chosen to be an educator of Bible studies, to teach Tanakh, the book of books for our people, the light of our life, ad kol afikei hatalmudim v'chol agapeim v'chochmat yisrael v'toldaso, and the most important work that far outshines all other studies of the Jewish people, they have to be anashim asher im kol gedulat hamada shelahem kol echad b'miktzao yugam kein shlomei emunei Yisrael b'deoteihem. They, in addition to their academic credentials, they also have to be God-fearing people. And if that remains true for Hebrew University, and I guess Rav Kook probably received some reassurance that that was going to be the objective, then everything will be fine. Birik shotehem ubechol darchei chayim, and they have to do this, they have to feel this in their entire lives. Shu gam kein ot al rochav halev v'godol hahashkafa hamadait b'toharata. Those people will represent the perfect fusion of acculturation that is purified within the Jewish spirit and the Torah. Ba'ofen zeh yavi lanu hapachad asher nivchad yachad im ha'riyah ha'gedola shelanu b'machazeh ha'nedar asher layom hazeh. That way, we will be able to bring that fear, which is really caution, together and integrate it with this beautiful rochav lev that we're experiencing today. V'im hanahara asher yinhar ruchenu miziv hanegohot asher l'shitfei haruach hashonim v'hamegavanim ha'ovrim aleinu et oto rochav halev ha'mevukash asher berachati yabo. And that will be the enlightenment of our souls, that despite all of the changes that are constantly taking place in our national lives, nonetheless, this will be the anchor that keeps us secure and will be the source of blessing. L'tuchuna kazot hinenu sho'afim sheyavo hamachon hazeh hamutar hayom b'chvod Yisrael. And it is this kind of objective that we yearn for, that this institution should be the source of great honor for Israel. Mehaimon yam v'chel goyim asher ba'u lanu. From the great, from even though there's a great wave of Gentile, non-Jewish influence that is passing over us, and let us therefore pray, just as Rabbi Nechunya Hakana did when he entered the Beis Medrash, let us also pray that with the establishment of Hebrew University, that no error, no mistake shall come through us. V'yeshev ami b'nevei shalom uv'mishkanot mivtachim uv'menuchot sha'ananot, quoting a pasuk, this nation will rest in tranquility and harmony. V'nizkeler ot b'simchas goyenu uv'vian beit mikdashenu v'tifartenu, we will therefore merit to see the joy of our nation, to see the rebuilding of the temple. Asher elav yinharu kol hagoyim lakachat Torah mitzion udvar Hashem Yerushalayim, that through that all of the nations will be illuminated to take the Torah from Zion and the word of God from Jerusalem. And that is how he, amen, and that's how he ends his Sermon on the Mount. You'll excuse the pun. That's how he ends his address on the top of Mount Scopus on the grand opening of Hebrew University. So a very bold move, probably felt that he had no choice. He's the chief rabbi, and he has to participate in some way. He's the great spokesperson for the Jewish people, and he has no choice but to participate. All of the dignitaries, Allenby and Balfour and Samuels are all there, and all of the Chashuvim and other rabbis, everyone's there. He's got to speak, and he says, listen, we have to be careful. We have to be cautious. Yes, we're optimistic about Hebrew University, but we also have to be cautious as long as we take the approach that this is not the sole panacea for Jewish life. This is only an adjunct to the yeshivas that exist within Klal Yisrael, then we'll be okay. That's Rav Kook's message. How do you feel about Rav Kook's message? You're sitting there and you're a Fruma Yid. What do you say to Rav Kook? What's your response to Rav Kook? You happy? You applaud? You're a little bit concerned? What's your attitude when you hear Rav Kook's speech? You're sitting there in 1925. It's after World War I. We haven't yet encountered the wave of anti-Semitism in World War II. What's going through your mind now? Chaim.
One can say Amen.
You know, you can say Amen. Halavai, it should be true. Okay, what else? A little worried about assimilation. Yeah. So it's interesting. We don't know exactly who else was there, but there was an article that was printed in Hamayan just over the summer by Avraham Zaks, who I think is an anical, but he cites that 8 years after the 1933, there was a fellow named Harav Shlomo Yosef Markovich, who was living in Romania, who sent Rav Kook a letter. But before we get that, if you take a look at footnote number 2 on the first page of the Mayan article, which is page 12, it says page 12 on the bottom of the page. Let me just scroll down for our audience. If you take a look, he writes in the text that there was a great throng of Rabbanim that participated. He says, "Hishtatfuto nitna ofe chashuv v'dati lamamad," that Rav Kook's participation gave religious legitimacy to the inaugural of Hebrew University. And if you take a look at footnote number 2, you see something really interesting. L'tekes huzmenu rabbanim mechubadim nosafim. Many rabbanim were invited to the ceremony of the opening of Hebrew University. Umonit miyuchedet nishlacha le'esof otam. There was a special limousine that was sent to pick them up. Kasher higia hamonit lakachat et sabi maran hagon. Is it Yehuda Moshe? I don't remember what his, or Yosef Moshe Charlap. So Rav Charlap was a student of Rav Kook, a big follower of Rav Kook. But the limo came to pick up my grandfather, Rav Charlap, who sha'al eifo harabanim ha'acherim shehuzmenu. He said, where are the other rabbanim? Okay. Va'anulo shehem nasu b'monit acheret. And the driver said they were picked up in another limo. Keshihigia hamonit shalo lemakom hatekes lo hivchin Rav Charlap rabbanim hanosafim. He gets to Mount Scopus. He looks around. He doesn't recognize any of the other rabbanim. So what does he do? V'hu hit achzev ma'od ubikesh minhag hamonit me nahag hamonit lahachziru miyad lebeito. gets back into the limo, tells the driver to take him home. V'lo sha'a lahatzarot lihishaer, and he refused all entreaties to get him to stay. Mipi Dodi beno harav Yosef David Ze'ev Charlap Zatzal. I heard this story from my uncle, his son. So clearly there was this discomfort in coming to the ceremony. But it wasn't until 8 years later that we have a record of the repercussions of this. This letter, you can see it's on the next page, and you can see a photocopy of the actual original letter on page 14 from Shlomo Yosef Markovich, who was a Rav in a town called Iasi in Romania. Your mother's town, Iasi? Wow, that's pretty amazing. So here's what the rabbi writes. Lekedem Rabbeinu Sheb Eretz Yisrael Harav Hagon HaMefursam Rabba Da'amim Nadbarna Du'umase. So he goes all of the flowery salutations. Yitzchak Moreno Harav Yitzchak HaKoyin Kook. It really means say Avram Yitzchak HaKoyin Kook. Av based in Bir HaKodesh Yerushalayim. Okay, etc., etc. Hagam shahaya kasher lai ad ma'od lageshet el ha'avodah hazot hazara v'hayetera avo lo yocholti li'atapek. I was very reluctant to write such a letter, but I had no choice. Hashebetz achazani lishmoa b'la gadol hador v'zakein yoshev b'yeshiva kahadras gaon shlita. It was very painful for me to have to hear the degradation of the gadol hador Rav Kook. Yashafti b'mesiba im ezu hu shoitim mechunim b'shem talmidei chacham. I was, you like the language. I was sitting with a group of other talmidei chachamim, but they're really idiots that have the title of talmidei chachamim. Vayisu midbarotehem al kavod taraso hagon nero yair. And the conversation drifted to talk about Rav Kook. Vehirim echad et kolo kechazir hayar ba'omro. And one of these guys lifted up his voice like a wild boar. Be'omro malachem ledaber me'arav Kook asher chilul shem shamayim. Why are you talking about so nicely about Rav Kook, who made a terrible chilul Hashem? B'na'umo al derech petichat universita b'Yerushalayim shalomdim bikoret hamikra. He introduced and endorsed the university in Jerusalem, which now does critical Bible study. What he calls Bible critique. Okay? V'darash kehadras gaono shlita ki mitzion teitzei Torah l'ha'inyan hanal. To the point where Rav Kook went forward, had the audacity to finish his speech to say that Hebrew University is a place of ki mitzion teitzei Torah. From Zion will come forth Torah. Now, we learned the speech together. Is that what Rav Kook said? What was his last line? What was his last line? You look back, the last line of Rav Kook's speech was Ki mitzion teitzei Torah. But what was he referring to? He was referring to the Beis HaMikdash, rebuilding the Beis HaMikdash. And that's where Torah will emanate from. Va'ani b'shomei bizitu oto. So when I heard this, says the Rav of Iasi, I immediately shouted the guy down. Va'amarti eich yiftze piv l'daber l'Rav Hagon. How dare you speak about the great Rabbi Kook that way? Me'ir la'aretz v'ladorim. Because Rav Kook, it's Rav Kook, he illuminates the world with his Torah. V'hu kafatz kenegdi, but he jumped back at me. Az nishbati levakesh mikvot Torah solo di'eni ezi gufa du'uvda hechi havi. So I ask you, Rav Kook, tell me what happened. Like, why were you there? Explain yourself to me so that I can silence the mouths of these falsehood speakers. Again, flowery salutations. I look forward to our redemption when we will see you as the Kohen Gadol. Okay. Very nice. Avdo Mechavei Kidash Shlomo Yosef Markovich Ram de Poyasi. okay, etc. Rav Kook writes a very terse letter, and that's what we'll end with tonight. And he just writes as follows. Shalom uvracha, this is in Tafresh Tzadi Gimel. Okay, and he writes as follows. Shalom uvracha lekvod gaver rabba v'yakira harav hagoin, etc., etc., etc. All the flowery salutations. Rosh Yeshiva's Beis Aaron, Bekehilas Yasi, Romania. Okay, higiani michtav kvod tarasu b'shelas chacham al divrei al devarai b'ptichata universita po. I got your letter inquiring about what I said at the opening of Hebrew University. Yeda yedidi. שמפני הכבוד הרשמי של כלל ישראל, לא יכולתי להשיב ריקם את המבקשים אותי להיות נוכח. First of all, you have to realize that out of honor to the Jewish people, I had no choice. I had to attend. I had to be there and represent the Torah world at the opening of yeshiva, at opening of Hebrew University. Be'et asher ba'u gedolei olam me'amim rabim, at a time when so many dignitaries came from all over the world. והנציב היהודי שאלני על דרך ברכת שהחיינו, והוריתי לו שיאמר בלא שם ומלכות וכן קיים. So the Netziv HaYehudi, I guess what would you call that? The Jewish representative or the Jewish official who was in charge of the ceremony asked if we could say the Shehechianu. Could we say the bracha of Shehechianu on the opening of a new institution? And I said, you could say it, but without Shemu Malchus. So what Rav Kook is adding is that there was an additional benefit. I was able to prevent them from saying a bracha levatala by saying Hashem's name for the Shehechianu. Va'anochi hizharti otam b'naomi sheyizoharu mikol davar shu shelo ketorah. But in my address, I was very careful to admonish the people. Don't deviate from the Torah. Don't allow Hebrew University to do anything that is against the Torah. Bein b'deot, bein b'maasim, whether it's intellectual material or practice. U'meforash amarti lahem, shegam ba'ofen hayoter tov, ein ha'universita makom shel Torah, rak shel yediot ha'olam. And I said very clearly, the university is not a place that supplants the yeshiva. It's not a place where you study Torah. It's a place where you study the acculturations of the world, the cultural benefits that we have received from the rest of the world, academia. The koach haTorah yedu sheyavo rak me hayeshivot hakedoshot, and that you have to also recognize that the strength of Torah comes from the yeshivot, doesn't come from the university. V'rak al zeh yomar ki mitzion teitzei Torah, and it was only about that I said that from Tzion, from the world of yeshivot, will go out Torah. And I don't have to prove this to you because there's been a printout of my speech already by the year 1933. And you'll see how the words of falsehood have been refuted. Vashem islach lashogim halalu. May God forgive those errant people who are in error. Doesn't curse them out, doesn't say anything negative about them. He just says, may Hashem forgive them. And that's v'hinini bazechotem bebrachat tzviyat Yeshua, and I therefore sign with a hope for redemption, Avrav Avram Yitzchak HaKohen Kook. So there you have it. What I wanted to bring out was that even Rav Kook perhaps may have felt a little bit uncomfortable, but when you're the chief rabbi, you have to do things for the sake of helping Klal Yisrael that are sometimes uncomfortable. You have to leave your comfort zone for the betterment of the Jewish people. And furthermore, Rav Kook, in defending his speech, essentially says, my whole purpose in being there was to prevent people from being misled to think that the university is a place which has the full solution to the national identity of the Jewish people. The Torah is still always going to be in the yeshiva, and the university is an augmentation of what the world of yeshivas, but it's not going to replace the world of yeshivas. And therefore, Kimitzion Teitzei Torah is about the yeshiva world. It's not about the university. And so this is, that's what I wanted to share with you tonight, just to have this hashkafa of Rav Kook. You see a segment of history, and you look back and you say, 100 years ago, has that much really changed? In the way that different people approach the kanoim, who accuse other people of making chilul Hashems, when in reality they're actually being Makadesh Shem Shemayim Barabim. Okay, yeah.
This time, 100 years ago, when I was all that, I stopped with this.